Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chartwise Women with Erin Swenlin and Mary Ellen McGonigal. I'm on my own today. Mary Ellen is under the weather, but I am going to be here for your June 24th, Thursday Chartwise Women show. I am here, as Mary Ellen usually is, to engage, educate, and most importantly, empower you to take control of your investments. And I think today's title and theme is perfect for that empowerment of taking care of your own investments because, of course, nobody cares about your money more than yourself. So you need to know what you're doing. And so I thought that it would be great to do a show today on an anatomy of a trade. So I'll take you pretty much through how I usually go about finding my best trades. And then I'm going to show you, most importantly, how to time those entries. And that brings me right into the wisdom of the week. It is crucial that you time those entries. I mean, you can really build up at least a 0.5% or more just in one day by timing your entries properly. Not all of us have the time to do this, but it also will give you an idea if you're going to set a limit order. It will help you figure out where the best place to be is and how to do that. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. And of course, the first thing that we want to do is find new momentum. In particular, we're going to look for new momentum in the sectors. This is how we start, right? We need to know what the market's doing in general, and then we want to know which sectors are carrying the market or finding new momentum. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how I do this. So always I start with, of course, the StockCharts homepage here on my workbench. And I go right down here to the sector summary. This piece of the homepage is really critical, and I highly recommend you put that on your work page here. So let's go ahead and look at the sector summary. So right now, of course, we can see what has been going on today, but we also have the opportunity to look over the past week and see where that strength is or where it might be building. And at this point, you can see that over the last week, energy, consumer discretionary has really come out of the woodwork. Technology has been carrying on with some great moves to the upside. Really where we're finding some laggards is in utilities, real estate, and staples. These are typically very defensive areas of the market. And clearly right now, investors are not feeling the need to go into defense mode. So let's go ahead and look at which sectors, though, are showing the best momentum. And the best way I find to do this is to use the sector candle glance. And that's right here at the bottom of this page. So this will give me my look at what all of these sectors are doing. Now you'll notice my candle glance probably looks a little different than yours. It's very easy to set up your own candle glance chart style. Just go in there, find that chart that you want. So for example, I will show you here where I have my chart styles. And what you want to do is save that chart style as candle glance. See, you can see right now, this is pretty much what we're looking at on the candle glance. I like to have my 20, 50, and 200-day EMAs, moving averages. And then I put the PMO, which is my momentum indicator. And this really is the big important piece here, is we're looking for new momentum. We're looking for stocks and sectors and industry groups that are showing those crossovers or turning momentum, turning to the upside. So in order to save your own candle glance, just fix your chart up exactly how you want that candle glance to look like, and then just save it as candle glance. So add new, and then this is what you would put in candle glance. That way you can get your own. All right, if you are interested in my chart styles that you're going to see today, feel free to email me at erin@decisionpoint.com, and I'm happy to share these with you. So let's look at this candle glance. Where are we seeing new momentum or sustained momentum? Well, clearly technology has been leading the way. It's really been holding up the markets. It's one of the reasons the NASDAQ is breaking to new all-time highs. This sector is still very strong. But you know what I really like to look for are those new momentum. Where are we starting to see that shift? Sometimes you end up in there a little bit too early, but a lot of times you are going to find that you can get in there early enough. So for example, let's look at these, right? Okay, so the consumer discretionary sector, we're seeing that new momentum shifting to the upside right here. So I like what that looks like. Consumer communication services is also showing new momentum. You can see how that's just turning up right in there. And then we look around at these others, and really, I'm not seeing the kind of momentum that I want. Healthcare has certainly been an area that I've concentrated in on my decision point diamonds this week. We had a lot of biotechs coming into favor last week. And so we looked at mostly those for my decision point diamond subscribers, where I find my diamonds in the rough stocks. And I'm showing you exactly how I do this. And I do this in my trading room on Fridays for my decision point diamond subscribers. So you're really getting an over my shoulder look at how to do this. So we've found 3 sectors of interest, and that would be discretionary, communication services, and healthcare. So what I like to do from here, we'll start with consumer discretionary, is at Decision Point, I have these sector charts. And these charts are annotated and available to our subscribers. And they include all of those, what I call under the hood indicators. So we know that we're seeing new momentum here in the comm services sector. So what's going on under the hood? Now, when I look under the hood, I'm not really that impressed with this one. And obviously it has had some momentum to the downside. So it really isn't surprising to see a little bit of problems as far as participation goes. But what I'm looking for are the percent of stocks that are holding above the key moving averages, the 20 and the 50. And you can see right now, there's just not a lot of participation going on here. And also, you're noting that the Silver Cross Index, this is an indicator that we use at Decision Point. It just measures how many stocks have a 20-day EMA above the 50-day EMA. So down here, we're just looking at price being above the 20 and 50. Here, we're combining that and looking at how many of those stocks have a 20-day EMA above the 50, because that gives you a nice bullish bias on the chart. So at this point, we're seeing some deterioration. We're not really seeing the kind of participation we want. Now, these numbers are from yesterday, so we could see some improvement, but let's just continue on. So consumer discretionary was the other place that we were looking. And you can see price-wise, really nice breakout coming up here. It is getting close to overhead resistance, so we need to keep that in mind. And let's look under the hood here. You can see much better participation numbers. Still have some problems here with that Silver Cross, still have some problems with that BPI, but overall it is, when you look at its relative strength versus the S&P, you can see that that strength is starting to improve. So this sector is still on my radar. And then the other one I really liked was healthcare. And again, you've got technology is still doing very well, but I'm looking for new momentum. I want that new shift. I want to be able to find those stocks that are just getting started. So healthcare was really my favorite last week. On Friday, when I was in the diamond mine, we had just gotten this PMO crossover buy signal, and we had rising volume coming in. And you can see that the participation was looking pretty good here. Really staying steady in that 70% area. Still could use some help here on price above the 20-day EMA, but you can see that that is still starting to move upward. And you can see that this sector, healthcare, is also still pretty much outperforming the market. So now we got to figure out, well, where are we going to go here? I'm going to use an example with healthcare, because I still think this might be a good place to go. Discretionary looks awfully good as well. But for today's example, I'm going to go ahead and use healthcare. So now what do we do next? Next, we need to find those best industry groups within the sector. So we've found the sector we want. Now we need to tease out those industry groups where we're seeing the best momentum starting. And once we've figured out our industry group, then we'll get on to stock selection. But let's start off with looking at what industry groups and how we can do this. And again, I think StockCharts really offers us a great way to do all of this. I love going in here again, homepage here, dashboard and sector summary, going right back there. Now, when you use that sector summary, if you go into the sector that you want to look at, in this case, healthcare, and you click on it, it's going to bring up all the industry groups within that sector. Oftentimes what we'll do is organize it by the scooter so you can see which ones are outperforming, if you will, the rest of their sector. But the other thing I like to do, and this is another really cool feature, is if you hover over the symbol, you can get a little line chart. So you can get kind of an idea right off the bat whether this is something you want. So biotech looks pretty good. It's pulled back, looks like it's kind of coming back there, but overhead resistance is near. Medical equipment was honestly where I started selecting my stocks this week, because we were seeing some great movement in medical equipment, and sure enough, you can see it right there. Healthcare providers, no, I look at this and I'm not really interested. You can see it's in a declining trend. Certainly it looks like it's reversing, but not really what I would say is what I'd look at. Medical supplies look okay. We do have a bullish formation there, and I will show you that momentarily. Look at pharma. Pharma looks pretty good because it's on a rising trend and it's continuing that rising trend. It's pulled back, looks like it's coming back. But let's go ahead. I want to show you medical supplies, and then we're going to look at medical equipment, since those are some of the areas I've been concentrating on this, this week. So I'm going to just show you these industry group charts, and then when we come back out after the break, we're going to look for stocks within these industry groups that look interesting to us. So here is the medical supply chart, and I'm throwing an annotation tool in here, and you can see that we have this pretty much the straight overhead resistance line, and price is getting ready to hit it, and that's always a little bit of a concern. But also notice that we have rising bottoms coming in here as well. That forms what we call a ascending triangle. Notice that every time it comes down, it doesn't have to come down as far when price pulls back. So that tells you that momentum is building and that we should expect a breakout above this particular resistance line. So looking pretty good. And when I look at the rest of this chart as well, I can see that we have a positive RSI. That's what we want to see on our stocks, as well as our industry groups, as well as our sectors. And of course, this brand new crossover buy signal coming on this very short-term breakout right now. You can see that in this thumbnail. And then when I come down and look at performance against the S&P, you can see that it is beginning to outperform the S&P. So that's definitely an area that I'm going to want to be interested in. The other group that we were looking at over here was medical equipment. We'll take a peek at this chart. So like I said, I concentrated this week for my diamond subscribers in this medical equipment area. I loved this chart on Friday. This chart was really set up nicely on Friday, and I'll show you why. I'm going to actually take us back in time just so you can see it, because it's really why I went to get this particular chart. So let's go back. And now we're on Friday when I looked at this chart. So on Friday, I had this beautiful double bottom pattern, nice bullish pattern, and we got the breakout above this confirmation line right here in the center of that W. When you get that breakout, you're supposed to expect a move, a minimum upside move that is the height of this pattern. So that would tell me with that breakout, we should break above overhead resistance here. And like I said, this chart just continues to get better and better this week. So that's where I'm going to be concentrating. So let's go to a quick break, and I will be back and I'll show you how you can find stocks within the industry groups that are interesting you. All right, we are back. We've zeroed in on the sector we want, which is healthcare, and we've now zeroed in on the industry group that we want, which is medical equipment. So let's go ahead and go in and now figure out which stocks we want. So again, we came in through, because this is important, we came in through the sector summary, clicked on the sector summary, found the sector I wanted, which was healthcare, clicked on it, got all of the industry groups that I wanted to look at, picked my industry group, and now I want to find the stocks in that area. So this click, that last click brings up all of the medical equipment stocks. So, or medical supplies, I should say. So let's organize it by scooter. Like I said, we want those strong performers at the top. And then we can also kind of pay attention to whether they're large, small cap, what their price is, so that we don't get ourselves into something a little bit priced a little too low. And then we can still use that same hovering over the chart to see which ones really look interesting. So if we go through here, there are plenty to look at, but that's a lot. So one of the things that I will do is that I will use a scan. Everybody knows I'm very much into my scans. And what you can do is come in here. This is a healthcare example. So this is only going to pull up healthcare sector stocks that are showing new momentum for the past 3 days. So I'm going to run the scan real quick here. And it brought up 3. Well, I wanted to get something in medical supplies. So I'm going to just change this a little bit. I'm going to allow it to not have to have been rising quite so long. And let's see what happens. So now I'm only asking it for a PMO that's been rising for 1 day. There we go, 18. So now we're gonna organize it by the industry group, and we know we want medical supplies. So here are 2 that came up on my scan that are supposedly, we'll see, showing new momentum. And sure enough, there you go. You can see how that momentum indicator, the PMO in this case, is turning up. So we got new momentum. And then we look under the surface and check this out. We already know that the industry group is starting to outperform, but check out ANIK against the S&P and against its industry group. So we already know it's doing very well against the S&P, but this is key. We've already found an industry group where we want to do our fishing, if you will. And now we've found an outperformer. It's outperforming its industry group as well. This is exactly the kind of setup that you want to see. All right. Let's move forward. So looking at this chart, I have to say this chart looks very good. One problem I'm going to note right off the bat is that you can see it's very volatile. So this is one of those stocks you're going to have to pick, but hang on for the ride, because it could be a little bumpy. But this one, it has bounced off of that 200-day EMA. It has recently got itself above its 50-day EMA. That's one of the things that I know that Mary Ellen looks at very closely. She likes to get into stocks that are just being showing strength and breaking out above that 50. So we've got that. And then if you look here in that thumbnail, we also have that 5-day EMA just about ready to cross over the 20-day EMA. And that is a short-term trend model buy signal for decision point. So all of these things look great. You also have that RSI as positive. So Anika Therapeutics looks very interesting right now. The next one we saw in medical supplies, Establishment Labs. Let's see what that has to go. All right, nice breakout. We can see today it's broken out above that previous high. We have a nice rising trend here. We have new momentum. Notice that that PMO, that momentum indicator, has actually crossed above the signal line. So that's a buy signal as far as momentum. And then again, we come down here and we look at performance. It's performing well against the S&P, which is very, very important, of course. But notice that it's also outperforming its industry group. And again, that we want to find those stronger performers within the industry group. Now, you don't have to necessarily do a scan to find these. Like I said, when we were on that page, and you can hover over those line charts, you can find them ones that have things that look interesting to you and go from there. But now it's time, we've looked at two stocks. I like them both. And we've got ANIK and we have ESTA. So now it's time to time our entry. So I like to time my entries. I use a 5-minute candlestick chart. It's not something I used to use very often, but I find that it works really, really well to time my entries into particular stocks. So I'm going to open up my screen a little bit here. We're going to put in ESTA, since that's the one we're looking at right now. And then remember how we were talking about chart styles? I have one that is called 5-minute, and that brings up my 5-minute candlestick. So what we're trying to do here is find the best entry. My rule for entry into any stock is, first of all, I like my RSI on my 5-minute chart and my PMO. I also include on-balance volume just to give me a feel for how volume is moving during particular moves. That helps. So for example, we have rising prices right here, but you notice that OBV is turning down. So that tells you there might be a problem ahead. And sure enough, we did end up getting a bit of a pullback. So how do we time that entry? How do we get in? Well, what we want to look for in a conservative entry, which is what I'm going to talk to you mostly about today, we want a positive crossover on that PMO, but we also want that RSI to be positive. When we get that, I call that a buy point. So the buy point back here that came in yesterday came in right about $82.13. So that's a number to keep in mind, $82.13. All right, so let's move along. We're now today, we got up this morning, we want to enter this stock. Now we're looking for the best entry. You can see right here, we had that crossover buy and we had the positive RSI. So in this case, the buy point came in a little bit higher. It was 83.25, but still a pretty good buy point in comparison to buying up here. So you want to pay attention. This is just such an easy way to set yourself up for a good entry. In this case, you notice that had we got in here, we did end up seeing it move up and then it kind of has moved back and forth, but still just entering there, we are about 0.5%, 0.57% on a gain, just by timing our entry this morning for right there. Now you can be a little bit more aggressive. You can get the crossover and maybe the RSI isn't positive. You could consider that. Back here, it looks like a buy point came in, but we also know that that RSI was starting to pull back. So maybe not the best entry. And sure enough, we were able to wait. And now it's a waiting game. If you haven't entered, now you're waiting to see that we get that turn on momentum. All right, so let's look at the other one. I'm curious what its 5-minute chart looks like today. There we go. It's a big 2.43% move, so it should be an interesting chart. This one's a little less complicated, and wow, how crazy is that? We're recording this show and the buy point has just come in. We just had that PMO crossover. We have the positive RSI. So our entry right now would be at 44.60. And compared to what the high was today, we have gained, that's a 0.5%. So if it gets back up to where it was earlier in the day, that's already a 0.5% that you've gained. Now, if you had seen this chart yesterday, which there's a possibility if you had been doing the same kind of search that I just did, there were a few buy points that came in. Back here, we had a buy point come in, and you can see over here when the PMO crossed, that was another buy point. The RSI was on the overbought side, so I probably would have waited on that one, just because you get those overbought RSIs. That's usually when you're going to get a pullback. And then we got another buy point that came in over here where the RSI wasn't quite as overbought. and that came in right there. So we know if we had entered today, or we're looking at this today, didn't get a chance to enter, we at least know where we might want to set our limit orders. You know, buy it when it gets to 43.63. You know, and that way you would have been able to get in at a premium buy point by setting that up the night before. I prefer to just do it right away. All right, so that pretty much concludes the anatomy of our trade. It's time for that fun segment that we always like to do called Yeah, That Happened. And today when I was searching the internet, this one came to my attention, and it is about a bar in Massachusetts. They're accepting monopoly money for 2 hours. However, you read the article, it doesn't account, you can't do that for alcohol. And the whole reason is they're trying to get on the monopoly for their city by doing this big, crazy thing. And they're hoping that their restaurant will become one of the spaces on a monopoly board for their city. So rather interesting. So what do we look at? Well, honestly, it's restaurants and bars, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at that segment of the market. And again, I'm just going to practice this a little bit for you. We're going to go into the sector summary. We know that restaurants and bars are in consumer discretionary. And now we're in here. Let's find restaurants and bars. And boom, there they are. So we can look over here. There is the chart for restaurants and bars, and you can see that we are seeing a rally today in that industry group. But what are some of the stronger stocks? Well, I have one for you, and that is Wingstop. Wingstop, I actually presented to my Diamond subscribers yesterday, and we are getting a really nice 2% plus move. This sector is really starting to heat up. It pulled back quite a bit when we were worrying about, you know, obviously the pandemic, but with the reopening, there is, you know, a lot of people that are supposedly coming into restaurants and bars, but there have been some hiring issues, and you can see that we had a big pullback here on Wingstop. But right now we're getting a beautiful breakout. You can see that new momentum building. The momentum indicator, the PMO, is not overbought. It can move up much higher. Yes, the RSI is getting overbought, but it's not quite there yet. I think we can eke out another couple of percentage points, even if it can get up to this previous area of overhead resistance. That's still a 2.25% gain. So I think Wingstop looks pretty interesting. And then I'm going to throw one more on at you, and that is RRGB, Red Robin. And Red Robin is having a beautiful breakout today, and it looks like it's just getting ready to start and run. You can see that PMO buy signal has come in today. RSI just got positive. We've got a nice high scooter rank, and look at the relative performance. It's really starting to improve against the SPY, and in particular, its industry group. So there you go. That was an anatomy of a trade right there for you. But now we are out of time. And I hope you did enjoy watching Chartwise Women today. It was my pleasure, but I did miss Mary Ellen. Have a great rest of your week and happy trading.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.